So this is really disturbing. Woman's arrest after miscarriage in Georgia draws fear and anger. Experts say that the arrest is part of a pattern of criminalizing pregnancy that has accelerated since the fall of Roe v. Wade. This article is by Bracy Harris, and it came out on April 5th. So on March 20th in rural Georgia, an ambulance responded to an early morning 911 call about an unconscious, bleeding woman at an apartment. When first responders arrived, they determined that she'd had a miscarriage. That was only the start of her ordeal. Selena Maria Chandler Scott was transported to a hospital, but a witness reported that she had placed the fetal remains in a dumpster. When police investigated, they recovered the remains, and Chandler Scott was charged with concealing the death of another person and abandoning a dead body. The charges were ultimately dropped as an autopsy determined that Chandler Scott had had a natural miscarriage at around 19 weeks, and the fetus was non-viable. Just can't imagine going through that. There's nothing natural about a miscarriage. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't feel that way. It traumatizes people. Still, Chandler Scott's arrest comes at a time when a growing number of women are facing pregnancy-related prosecutions in which the fetus is treated as a person with legal rights, and her experience raises troubling questions about miscarriages that happen in states with strict abortion laws. Women's health advocates say, how should remains be disposed of, and who gets to decide? Georgia's 6-week abortion ban, the Living Infants Fairness and Equality Life Act, which is a bunch of bullshit. You're cutting funding for kids to have school lunches, but you want to give absolute rights to fetuses. Does anybody know how just ridiculous that is on its face? Let's just get that very clear right now. That is idiocy, absolute lunacy. The Life Act, which provides any fetus with a heartbeat legal recognition under the law. Though the push for fetal personhood provisions like this one predates the 2022 Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, experts say that it has intensified since. Roughly 24 personalized personhood bills have been introduced in the first 3 months of this year, according to the Guttmacher Institute, a research organization that supports reproductive rights. Jill Weiberlenz, a professor at the University of Iowa College of Law and an expert on stillbirth pregnancy loss, sees wider implications in Chandler Scott's arrest. Research shows that 10 to 20% of known pregnancies end in miscarriage, most often in the first trimester. If what comes out of you in a miscarriage is a dead human body, and you can't abandon that, you can't put that in the trash, you can't flush it down the toilet, Lynn said. Most people experiencing miscarriage are also apparently committing crimes in Georgia. Legal experts have drawn comparisons between Chandler Scott's arrest and that of Brittany Watts, a then 34-year-old woman in Warren, Ohio, who was charged with the abuse of a corpse after her miscarriage in 2023, though the charges were later dropped. In January, she filed a lawsuit against the city and hospital where she sought care. Neither the hospital nor the police responsible would respond to a request for comment. Advocates say that the number of pregnant people facing criminal charges for conduct linked to pregnancy rose after Dobbs. At least 20 women were charged the year that followed, according to 2024 report from Pregnancy Justice, a reproductive rights group. Women of color, lower income women, women struggling with substance abuse, are particularly vulnerable in interactions with authorities, advocates say. Yeah, they are. Dana Sussman, Senior Vice President of Pregnancy Justice, an advocacy organization, said she was very glad to hear that the charges against Chandler Scott had been dropped. On one hand, this is terrific news, she said, but it doesn't undo the very real harm and devastation that charges like these bring in the first place. Chandler Scott's arrest is just one example of how Georgia is harming women's health and lives, said Monica Simpson, executive director of Sister Song, an Atlanta-based reproductive justice organization that has challenged the state's abortion ban in court. Last year, Amber Thurman died after she reportedly had to wait nearly a day for surgery that experts said could have saved her life. The picture that's being painted in Georgia is a very grim one, Simpson said. Georgians are not asking for more restrictions or more surveillance. We're actually asking to have more health care, to have more access. Georgia recently held a hearing on a personhood bill that would have allowed people who oh my God, personhood bills. Are you fucking kidding me? The idiocy. Thank you. A Democratic state senator from Atlanta speaking at the state capitol this week said the Chandler Scott case demonstrates the idiocy of fetal personhood. Thank you for just absolutely using the word I just used. Idiocy. Fucking ridiculous. This is terrifying for women of reproductive age in Georgia. You wonder why women don't want to have babies anymore? Mega Men. Jesus Christ. You know, the Tift County District Attorney's Office, which handled the Chandler Scott case, did not answer a list of detailed questions from NBC News and referred instead to a press release about the charges being dropped. In that release, District Attorney Patrick Warren said his office had determined that the fetus had not been born alive and pursuing the case against Chandler Scott was not in the interest of justice. The office referring additional questions about the case to police department, which did not respond. Nobody wants to answer questions. A person answering contact list listed for Chandler Scott said it was not her number. A relative did not immediately respond to requests for comment. In these sensitive moments of her life, it has caused not only her but her family emotional, financial, and mental stress. An online fundraiser for Chandler Scott states. Warren acknowledged in his press release that some in the community might be unhappy with his decision to drop the charges. This case is heartbreaking and emotionally difficult for everyone involved, he said, but our decision must be grounded in law, not emotion or speculation. Well, somebody had some sense. But why bring it in the first place? The victimization of women is not going to stop in this country. I mean, this is so sad. And Miss Chandler Scott, my heart goes out to you. I can't imagine going through that and being arrested and taken to prison when you just miscarried a baby that you were looking very much forward to having. I mean, it's just absolutely cruel. And cruelty is the fucking point with these people.